Meanwhile, sorry, I'm still waiting, but I will meanwhile welcome everybody. Apologies, you're looking behind the curtain. My name is Andrea Boykovich, and I'm the Assistant Director at Open Planning and Development Corporation. Very happy to see you all here. Happy to meet you in face-to-face Etherland, Peter. This evening's topic for our monthly meeting called Let's Talk is Tangled Title. And we are fortunate enough to have Peter Lewis with us today from Neighborhood Legal Services, who's going to be talking a bit about what Tangled Title is and how it can affect homeowners and home residents, rather. I suppose the ownership is the issue, and especially here in the Oakland context. If any one of you has any questions during this meeting, please feel free to raise your hand or you could unmute. It'd be really nice to see your faces if anybody doesn't mind sharing their video screen. It's always better to talk to actual humans than a set of names. You're all welcome to say hello. Here's Wanda. Sorry, I'm still waiting, Peter, for the thing that you emailed to me.
I just emailed it to you.
Yeah. I'm still not picking it up. If there's any way you could get started, as soon as it arrives, I will share it up on screen for everybody.
Okay.
Or if Wanda, you wanted to say something before we got started also.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Wanda with OPDC, and I'm really happy to have Peter Lewis from Neighborhood Legal Services here. Thanks, Peter, for joining us.
You're welcome.
He's going to explain the ins and outs of what we mean by Tangled Title, but it is an issue that we see a lot here in Oakland, and it's something that's pretty common across the city. And as OPDC, we want to provide resources to folks for whom this might be, a situation, or they might know somebody in their family or a neighbor who is having issues. And we'll talk about why we think it's important that, a house that you might have inherited or might have had in shared ownership with, even a neighbor. We see sometimes where people buy properties in common and then, later on down the line through heirs, that becomes very complicated. And there are resources available for people to be able to get some services to really, it is tangled is a good metaphor, because then you end up being able to straighten this stuff out. So, and we've helped some residents with some of either with referrals to attorneys who could help them, or, here we have probably the best resource for folks who may have an issue with this with Neighborhood Legal Services. So we just really want to be a resource provider for this issue. You can always reach out to us just to ask questions if you're not sure about a situation, and we can share. We're not lawyers, but we can share. I could certainly share my knowledge of, different situations that I've run across with real estate and things that I think you might have been muting somebody else, but so I got muted there for a second. But yeah, if people, while you're not talking, if you can keep on mute, we do want your video on so we can see your faces, and then maybe keep your phone, your audio muted until it is time for questions. It's not quite time for that yet. So if everybody can be muted, that's going to be helpful. So I won't talk any further, but I appreciate everyone joining. And I just want to set the context that we had this as a topic because it is something that we know a lot of residents that we know in Oakland either have a current issue or, may run into this or know a neighbor that does. So it's pretty common maybe to have, inherited a property and not taken it through the estate process to get it in your name. That's the simplest form, which Peter will talk about. And just, again, wanted to be a resource provider for this issue for people in the neighborhood. You can certainly talk to us about where to go. And then also we're bringing the actual legal experts on this to you tonight with Neighborhood Legal Services. So, so we've got your presentation up, Peter, and we'll hand it over to you. So thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Peter Lewis, and as she said, I'm an attorney with Neighborhood Legal Services. I was in private practice until about 2.5 years ago. And while in private practice, I was asked by Barbara Kern, who's one of the managing attorneys at Neighborhood Legal, to start a program. They called it the Tangled Title Project. And at the time, I really didn't know what they were talking about. And a friend of mine, a colleague who now has moved to England, lucky him, he and I started this maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Now, a tangled title, I'm just going to assume everybody doesn't really know what I'm talking about because it'll be simpler. A tangled title is a situation, you go to the next slide if you'd like. It's where the owner or the occupant of the house has a legal interest in the house, but they're not the owner of record. That's a very important distinction because the owner of record is the person who's identified as a legal owner at the Department of Real Estate. That means that if someone were an abstractor or an attorney, we're going to go in and try to determine who's the owner. The last deed of record would indicate the record owner, and that's not necessarily the person living in the house. Now, there's several reasons why those might be two different people. Pennsylvania is a little peculiar compared to other states around us. They require some sort of judicial action to officially recognize a transfer of ownership, even if you're an only child and both your parents died. You inherit the house, but as far as everybody else is concerned, your parents are still the owners of record unless you go to court and you have the court say, yes, you're the owner now. Another way is if someone, not a lot of people, but several people, they buy houses on an installment contract or what we call seller financing. And this happens quite a bit in this situation. The people pay the installment contract off, but the seller refuses to give them a deed because they're going to try to squeeze a little more money out of them. They're going to say, well, you were late here. These are late charges. We get interest. And if the person has paid off an installment contract, they're the owner. They're the legal owner, but they're not the record owner because there's no deed in their name. Another one that happens quite a bit is you have a husband and wife who own a piece of property together and they get a divorce. The court will award the property to one of the parties, usually the wife if they have children, and nothing is ever done to force the husband or the person who loses the property in the court case to actually go ahead and convey their interest. So in that situation, it's a slight difference. She mentioned jointly owned property. This is that situation where one person occupies the house, one person is entitled to all of the interest, but as far as the records are concerned, they don't have all of the interest because somebody else who should have conveyed their interest never did. It's fairly frequent because if you have a situation in a divorce where there's any sort of oppressive behavior or violence, you'll have a mom who's afraid to confront dad. She just wants dad out of her life and she's content not getting the title fixed if she doesn't have to deal with him anymore. The final one, probably the least common, fortunately, you'll have a situation where you have someone who's older or not as competent as they could be, and people take advantage of that. We have a case pending right now where an older woman took in a cousin, and the cousin promptly forged her name on a mortgage, ate up all of the equity in the house, bought another house, and now wants to be her power of attorney so she can take the house and actually dispossess her. Another one is mom had 2 sons. she gave a power of attorney to one son who immediately conveyed the family house to himself. And the day after mom died, he filed an eviction action against his own brother. Both of those situations are fraud, and we're fighting both of them. I feel pretty good about our chances, but they're certainly, they're the most spectacular. Now, next slide, thanks. Why do tangled titles matter? Well, if a title is tangled, then the person who lives there doesn't have is not the record owner, and unless they're the record owner, they can't get money. They can't get a grant to make urgently needed repairs. If they have delinquent taxes or a mortgage payment or delinquent utilities, they can't enter into manageable repayment plans to repay those amounts. The entity who collects delinquent taxes will set up a repayment plan, but if you're the owner of record, you could get up to 5 years to repay it. If you're not the owner of record, you get maybe 12 or 18 months, and that's a huge difference for these people. A mortgage company won't even talk to a person unless they're the owner of record. So they could be helpless in the middle of a foreclosure action where they can't even do save your home program or anything like that. They can't get homeowners insurance, which is scary. It should be scary. They cannot transfer title to someone else. Let's say they've lived in the house for 10 years and they've been making all the payments and maintaining it, and they don't need it anymore and they want to sell it. They can't sell it. So they lose that generational wealth. This is the most racially motivated, or racially in its origin aspect of this. In many of the communities where this is prevalent, there are predominantly African American, and these houses that have been purchased and been in the families are the repositories of most of their family's wealth. And when a title is tangled and they are unable to hold on to the house or transfer it to the next generation, they lose generational wealth, and it's a significant problem. Oftentimes, when people have a tangled title and they think, well, I'm just going to let it go, and then they realize they need to untangle it, to maintain the metaphor, and they're unable to do so, and it is, to them, hopelessly complicated. They often simply abandon the house. And when a house is abandoned, it attracts criminal activity. These are recognizable statistics. It's a fire and safety hazard. It decreases the value of houses in the neighborhood by 10 to 15%. If you live next door to an abandoned house, you often lose the ability yourself to get homeowners insurance. And speaking generally, it just reduces the tax base of that borough or the community. So it is a problem, a specific problem to individuals, and it's an existential problem to the community. We treat tangled titles in the program as one small part of the problem of affordable housing. You have families in areas, they have a house, they're in the house, they have to make payments of a few $100s, either to make a mortgage payment or repay a tax delinquency or utility delinquency or something like that, or the cost of homeowners insurance. That's almost always significantly less than the rent that they would have to pay if they abandoned that house. So it's the house that they're in is infinitely more affordable than any rental situation. And if they're out of a house and they can't afford the rent, then they have to move into a subsidized housing situation, and they're taking it away from someone who doesn't have the potential option of a house that was in their family. So it's a significant, it's a smaller part, but it is a significant part of the whole affordable housing situation. Now, how big a problem is it? Well, when we started this, I have a friend from church who works at the Pitt Center for Social and Urban Research. And I was talking to him about this, trying to get an understanding of the ramifications. And he said, you know, we could do a map. And I said, what, of Allegheny County? He said, no. What we can do is we can take a map. We have access to the real estate records in Allegheny County, and we have access to death records. So what they did was they took, they went through the real estate records, and if there was a situation where the record title hadn't changed hands for 35 years, and that was an arbitrary number, just a generation, 35 years, if that matched a name that appeared on the death record base, so they tagged it as a possible tangled title. And based on that rubric, they came up with over 4,000, I think 4,300 in Allegheny County. The interesting thing, I guess, interesting is the right word. Since I started doing this, I've probably handled 250 cases, maybe 250, 300. I have yet to encounter a factual situation where title hadn't changed hands for 35 years and the owner of record appeared in a death record base. These are the ones I'm dealing with. Title changed hands, last changed hands, usually less than 15 years ago. So if you think about that, 4,000 may be a very low number. I would say it's probably closer to 6,000. Now you have to take away houses that have been torn down and are now vacant lots, but I suspect the number's more than 4,000. So you can go to the next slide if you want. What do we do at Neighborhood Legal Services? Well, we provide free legal services to assist homeowners in obtaining record title to inherited property. What we call it ownership stabilization. We are doing this in 4 counties across Western Pennsylvania. And I didn't know this. One of my colleagues who helped me prepare for a presentation in Georgia said that we have one of the highest home ownership rates in the country, 71%, which is pretty impressive. And it helps preserve that. What I think we bring to the table that is better or more comprehensive than other agencies that do this work is that we have 60, 70 attorneys, and we do a wide range of services. So, and we can get pretty creative. We have a tangled title right now where we had to file bankruptcy for one of the people, and then we had to pressure an ex-spouse into leaving them alone, and we could do all of that in-house. We didn't have to farm out any of it. And when the case is done, we can help them with a rudimentary estate planning. So I think we have a better overall situation. Next slide. Now, how do we fix them? Well, there are 3 different ways that we do it, and it depends on the facts of the situation. The most common way that we do it, it's a statute, 20 PA 3546. It's called a petition to determine title to real estate. It's a petition filed in orphans court where you give notice to the owners of record, the owners of a legal interest. You identify them, send them notice, give them an opportunity to object to it. And if they don't, and you have given them all of the notice you're required to under the statute, then the orphans court will sign an order saying that your client is the owner of record. It takes about 3.5 months to do that from start to finish. That's assuming that there are no weird problems. I have one that has weird problems. It's been going on for 2 years, but 90% of them are pretty normal. In some situations, I'll open an estate for the deceased person. That involves, it's a little slower than a 3546. But it works just as well. We use that usually when we have several interest owners that we can't get a hold of, or who are not necessarily in agreement that the party filing the petition is the one entitled to the property. It involves from time to time some adversarial proceedings in orphans court, but it does work. Or another much more common situation is if a person comes there and says, okay, I'm living in mom and dad's house, and I've got a will, and it says I get the property, or I've got a will and it says my brother and I get the property, and my brother's not interested. We have to open an estate if we know there's a will. We're just ethically bound to open an estate, and that's when we would do that. In situations where a person is buying it on contract, an installment contract, or they're the victim of fraud, the statutorily required method for clearing up that title, for untangling that, is a quiet title action. It's a very specific process, and it can take some time because that's at the Court of Common Pleas. So that's everything. I could go into a lot more detail, but I don't want you all to fall asleep on me. So.
Peter, thank you so much. And I wanted to call attention. There's a couple questions here in the chat.
Okay.
The most recent one is Pam Collier asking if we can get the PowerPoint presentation. You've emailed it to me. Would it be acceptable to you if I post it on our website?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And then there was a question here. Oh, sorry.
A recent time, I think I went and spoke with one of the city councilmen, and there were a couple of attorneys still in private practice who have been really strong advocates for this. And I said to the councilman, I said, I hope you enjoy this. I know these two are probably getting a little tired of hearing it again and again. And they said, well, at this point, it's almost like a lullaby. So I share it freely.
Well, thank you very much for your generosity. It can be very helpful. And then we had a question here from Mark Oleniak saying, even tearing down the house doesn't change the entanglement, right? And Mark, please feel free to unmute yourself if you want to add to that.
Well, it depends, which is something lawyers often say. Before a house can be torn down, the city has to take some possession of it. And what they will do is they will start legal proceedings. And usually it's because there are tax bills or some other problem with the utility bill, or it's being condemned. All of those are judicial actions, and that will clear up the title. Not in a perfect way, but it will clear it up enough so that the governmental authority can tear the house down. Still there? Yeah.
But just to clarify the question, like if it was a private owner, for instance, who demolished the house, that wouldn't be the city clearing any of those liens or anything like that. No. It wouldn't in that chance change the tangledness.
It would not. You have to do these judicial proceedings have to take place at some point.
Right.
No. I know Daphne.
Peter, one more thing, if we could, before we get to other questions, I think it's helpful if we could go into a little bit about like, who might be eligible for your services. If, okay. It's not everybody who can receive services from Neighborhood Legal Services. So there's certainly for higher wealth individuals, we can make referrals to attorneys, but for lower wealth folks, I think your services are a great option for people who might not have the resources for a private attorney. So if you could speak to that a little bit, that would be super helpful.
Yes, we have 3 general categories of people who are eligible for our services. If they are over 65, if they are a veteran, and if their income is, I think it's 125% of poverty. I'm not positive about that, but because I don't do the intake, but I think that's what the number is. So any one of those 3 categories. And if they're unsure, the way we get clients is they call in and they go through intake, and the intake can find out how they qualify. We have lots of programs, lots of different sources of funding, and each source of funding has its own limitations on who we can represent. But there are quite a few, and if we can't do it, we can refer them to other agencies, and then they can refer them back to us. For example, the URA has several programs that help people get their houses fixed. Hilltop Alliance has some like that. Of course, they're limited to geographically to where they take clients, but our problem, our limitation is all based on strings attached to our funding. So if they come in and they don't fit within the categories that we can represent, that our funders have told us we can represent, then we can't represent them. But we can refer them to the Housing Assistance Fund. And if they qualify there, they come back and we can help them all we want. So specifically, our three categories are the elderly over 65, veterans, and 125% of poverty. But there are other ways to get their services to us or get our services to them. Hope that answers your question.
And you provide other services. You mentioned you have so many attorneys, other, in addition to yourself, that do other things. So
Right.
It's also a good resource if people, are in a problematic rental situation, or even some other family law services that people might need.
Our family law services are mostly limited to PFAs, protection from abuse.
Okay.
We don't do divorce or child custody or anything like that.
Got it.
But it's
So
always,
you do a lot of landlord-tenant issues.
yes, we do a lot of that. If you have a mom who is in a situation where she's completely intimidated or afraid for her children, it's always easier if you have an attorney intervene on her behalf. So we can do that. I mean, we won't handle the child custody or anything, but we can be somebody who pushes back on her behalf. So I don't think I'm that good at explaining things.
Well, I don't know. I mean, at some point, we do want it to just generally be informative and answer any questions that people have, but you did explain the basics pretty well. So,
well, if you encounter anyone who says, I can't get repairs to my house, I owe money, I'm in a foreclosure and I can't talk to the bank, and you'll say, whose house is, well, it was mom and dad's house. And why are you there? Well, when they got sick, I moved back in with them to take care of them. And my brothers and sisters said, well, you should have the house. Well, what did you do then? Well, we didn't do anything. Okay, well, here's what you need to do. You need to find an attorney, and they should call us and we can see if they qualify. I know 2 private attorneys who do this. One of them, unfortunately, is retiring and the other one is still doing it. So we can probably find them a private attorney if they don't qualify for our services.
and we could as well. We know some private attorneys who we've referred people and we work with to help people here in the neighborhood in Oakland as well. So,
and if the attorneys have questions about the process, I'll share everything I've got. It doesn't bother me at all.
Does anyone else have questions? Maybe, anything that you might be working through yourself, you can feel free to throw your question into the pot here.
Hello, I'm Jackie. I do have a question. Well, a situation where I got a divorce and my house, my name never really changed, even though I got married 25 years ago. Now we got a divorce. And what I find out is that I think he was talking to the person registering the title, because my driver's license had my maiden name on it, which I never changed. And he used my maiden name sometimes, but they attached his last name to my title. And now that we're divorced and since 2011, it doesn't match my ID. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. Because my ex-husband, he was a narcissist. So there was some abusive, behavior in that. And I do not want to waken a sleeping bear. If he thought he could get my house from me, he would try. at
Is
the
his
time
name
of our
ever on the
divorce.
deed?
Huh?
Was his name ever on the deed? Did you buy the house
No,
where you married?
no. I think was we married? Yes, we were married. At the time, I got it from National City Mortgage, and they told me if I put him on the deed, they was not going to get me a loan. And he signed off saying all of his interest on it, but I can't find that document.
Could it be
My
part of the
copy
divorce
was ripped
proceeding?
in half, so he probably destroyed it, when he tried to.
Could it be part of your divorce proceeding? Could it be in that?
No, because National City had sold my mortgage to PNC, so they were long gone. And
Well,
that
it's
happened.
and it's part of the loan file, then PNC will still have it. If the mortgage still has the mortgage been paid off?
Oh yeah, I paid that off. I paid it off in 16. So
It might still be in existence. They generally keep their records for a little under 10 years. So what I would do is go to PNC Bank and see if you can get a copy of the loan file. Because if he relinquished his interest or, I don't know the specifics of your situation. If you bought the property by yourself and you're no longer married, then it's your property. Now, if you bought it in your married name and you want it to be in your maiden name, we can do that. Or if you want to.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. When I went and bought the property, I gave him my ID. I guess I was talking to some. I don't know what happened, but they attached his name, on it, and so I need to get it back into my only
Okay.
my name. I never had my name changed at all.
Well, you're welcome to call us, and if we can help you, we will. And I'll be glad to look into it a little bit more, even if we can't help you on a formal basis.
Oh, that's so nice. I appreciate it because it is like I'm thinking it might be a problem one day,
Right.
Okay, good. What do I have to do? Just call y'all or
All
what
neighborhood
email?
legal services.
Huh?
All neighborhood legal services.
Oh, okay. Neighborhood Legal Services.
On Penn Avenue.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
Maybe we could put that in the chat. Jared, would you mind putting that in the chat? That'd be great. Thank you.
Beat me to it.
I've got 2 dogs, and I think one of them's about ready to bark. It's got that. No, don't.
Aw.
We had one question in the chat here about from Daphne Redder, whether or not Neighborhood Legal Services is able to take on folks who qualify, or if there might be sometimes a wait for NLS services.
What?
Sorry, is there ever a waiting list that you might have of would-be clients asking for Neighborhood Legal Services help? The
waiting list, no. I mean, I've got over 100 cases right now. So there's a little bit of a wait because there's only 24 hours in the day. But no, there's not. There's the only time there's a waiting list, and it actually took place tonight. We do a debt clinic twice a month where we talk to people about their situation 10-15 minutes and give them what advice we can. It's usually where we can't do much, but just give them advice. And there will be waiting lists for that because we only get 15 a month, or 15 that 2-week period. So other than that, no, there's no waiting list. It may take us time to get to it. But I have 2 new cases at the beginning of the week, and I haven't had a chance to call them yet. So.
Oh, okay.
But there's no waiting list.
Daphne, did that answer your question? I think I might have butchered it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you.
Jackie, I know that you're calling in from a phone, and I just wanted to make sure that you were able to see the chat. My colleague Jared dropped the number and website information for Neighborhood Legal Services into the chat. Do you need me to read that out, or can you see that?
I can't see it, so I would appreciate it if you
No, of course.
read it out. I'm
You
looking for my
betcha.
pen. Give me 1 second, get my ink pen. I'm all right. Okay, I got. Go ahead.
You got it. The phone number is 866-761-6572.
6572. And the name again, or just is it just the main number?
Neighborhood Legal Services.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Does anyone else have any questions?
My dog's
Do you all have any other clinics that you do? You said the debt clinic.
a debt clinic is just, for example, we had one tonight. I had one tonight where she's being sued in a collection action, and at district magisterial court. We don't go to magisterial court. We just don't have the manpower to do it. But we do have packets that we send that explain to the people what they should do and what they shouldn't do when they get there. Another one is, it was a basic landlord-tenant situation. You know, what do I do? I've left, but they're trying to get money out of me, and I explained what I would do if I were them, if I were representing them, that sort of thing. So those are very, very basic consumer law issues. Those are what we deal with at the debt clinic.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Did I answer your question, Daphne? We can take on everyone who qualifies.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's great. That's great to know.
I'm sure there are some attorneys there who would hate that I just said that, but when you get emails from them Sunday morning at 10, you know, about a case.
Oh, okay. That's nice. That's nice.
You know, we're not doing this to get rich. We're doing it because we believe in the cause.
I know that's right. And we need so much help out here. We really, really, really do. You know, it's just so, we're so victimized out here. It's terrible in a lot of spaces, just because we are in these low income areas. You know, we get impacted by the filth and the crime that lives around us, and it makes it hard for us to move and be mobile, moving up and out into better neighborhoods, better income. And what do we do with what we got, you know, which is
Right.
fixing up homes and stuff. So I appreciate it. Now, you all work with all of Allegheny or just Oakland?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, we work Allegheny, Beaver, Butler, and Lawrence counties.
Okay. So your services is available to them, not just Oakland?
Yeah, no, it's all of Allegheny County, all of Beaver, Butler, and Lawrence counties as well.
All right, great. That's good to know.
Obviously, there are a lot fewer cases in we call them the outer counties, but we cover all four.
All right, nice. Nice. That's all I have.
So thanks, everybody. If there's no other questions, we could call it a slightly shorter night. It's a pretty complicated topic, but it was very lucidly and efficiently explained there, Peter. It was really quite amazing. Oh, I'm sorry.
If anyone has
Mark?
any questions, Mark has a question. I can give you my direct number. I'll just type it in.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mark, you want to put your question in the chat? I'm happy to read it out if you don't have the sound. If anyone else wants to put a question in the chat.
That's my
Oh.
direct phone number if you have more questions.
Is it okay, Peter, for me to read that out loud?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Jackie, you might want to take this one down. Peter Lewis's direct number. Peter Lewis's direct number is 412-586-6153. Mark,
Your question involves Newt Gingrich. Mark?
You have to be a certain age to know who that is.
mercifully. Mark, I'm not sure and any of us quite understand your question. Similar to credit protection services for credit/identity fraud. Protection against
No,
other.
if I see Newt Gingrich's face appear, I generally change the channel. So I know that his second wife was dying of cancer and he went into the hospital to get her to sign a property settlement agreement. I do know that about him, but that's about all. So it's rather ironic that he's offering protection services for fraud. And I don't feel strongly about that at all. Like, so no, I have not heard about that. I know there are, I mean, that's more an issue of identity theft, which is an entirely different topic, I think.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you very, very much, Peter. This was incredibly helpful. If we are done with the questions, wish everybody a very pleasant evening. Thanks so much for coming out. We will post the recording and the PowerPoint from this evening on our website. Should be available very soon. And if you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. You can reach us at questions@opdc.org. The easiest thing, or our website generally, is www.opdc.org. And we would be very happy to hear from you. So we will see you next month at the third Wednesday for Let's Talk, and we look forward to seeing you all then. If anyone in the meantime has suggestions for topics you'd like us to follow up on or present in future meetings like this, please don't hesitate to drop them here or to send them along to us via email. And we look forward to hearing from you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can call me if you want to talk about this, Mark. Just saying. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Bye.